You're not exhausted because of what you do. You're exhausted because of who you have to be while doing it. There's a version of you, flawless, polished, certain, that the world has come to rely on. And maybe at one point you did too. It got you through doors, built your reputation, protected you from doubt. It kept the machine running. But now, that version is costing you something you can't name. You're still high-functioning, still decisive, still admired, but somewhere between your calendar and your silence, you've started to disappear. You don't panic. You don't collapse. That's not how it works. What you feel is quieter. A kind of absence in the middle of the performance. A smile that feels rehearsed. A compliment that doesn't land. A room full of people who respect you but can't see you, not because they aren't looking, but because they're looking at the mask, the one you forgot how to take off. Carl Jung called it the persona, the part of you designed to meet the world. It's not a lie, it's a survival tool, a language, a stage costume. And like all costumes, it begins with purpose and ends with erasure. Because the longer you wear it, the more you forget that there was ever a face beneath it. At first, it's subtle. You start censoring your truth, not because you're dishonest, but because you're efficient. You edit out what's vulnerable. You overvalue what's strong. You say the right thing, but feel nothing. The spark that once ignited your voice is quiet. The sense of purpose that once pulsed through your work feels like a vague echo. You're executing, but not inhabiting. And here's the part you haven't said aloud. Not to your team, not to your coach, maybe not even to yourself. You don't know how much longer you can do this without losing something essential. This isn't burnout. This isn't a bad week. This is the moment in the script where the actor forgets where the role ends. It's not a breakdown, it's an awakening, the kind that whispers and not screams, the kind that says, if the applause stopped tomorrow, if the title disappeared, if no one was watching, would you still recognize the one who remains? And if not, it's time to ask, who's really leading your life, the role or the one you abandoned to play it? You're still winning, that's the problem. If you were falling apart, you'd know what to do. Rest, recalibrate, recover. But this is different. You're performing the role so flawlessly. No one suspects you've left the stage. You hit the metrics, you lead the calls, you keep the meetings moving, you get thanked, followed, quoted. But somewhere between the task and the title, the you that started this journey is missing. And the scary part, you can't quite remember when they left. What you do remember is last Thursday, pausing outside your own office, hand on the doorknob, heart strangely heavy, not from dread, not from fear, from disconnection, like you were about to enter a meeting as a version of yourself that no longer felt like home. You smiled anyway, you stepped in, you performed, of course you did. And not one person saw the hesitation, because that's how convincing the persona becomes. Carl Jung warned that the danger of the mask isn't that it hides the truth from others, it's that it hides the truth from you. The longer you play the role, the more fluent you become in a language you no longer understand. You tell yourself it's a phase, a rough patch, a temporary lull, but deep down you know, this isn't temporary, this is structural. The mask has fused to the face. You've become the character, the expert, the executor, the one who always has the answer. And now the idea of being fully seen, not the mask, not the role, not the function, but you, feels unfamiliar, vulnerable, unsafe. But that's the point, because beneath the performance is the human being who has something far more valuable than efficiency. Presence, the kind that doesn't just complete the task, but connects to it. The kind that doesn't just lead, but listens. The kind that doesn't need applause to feel real. You were never meant to live on stage. You were meant to know who you are when the curtains fall. And maybe that's where this begins, not with reinvention, but with remembering, not with proving something new, but with letting go of the act. So the leader can return whole human and finally home. And finally, you don't fall apart, you fragment. No breakdown, no public failure, just a slow, quiet fading of fire, of presence, of self. You still show up, still solve problems, still command rooms, but behind the steady delivery, something is missing. Not competence, not clarity. There's a moment, maybe it happened last week, when you heard your own voice in a meeting and thought, I sound exactly like I should, and nothing like I am. That's the split. The moment the role becomes an echo chamber, the moment you realize the version of you the world sees is no longer animated by truth, but by memory. You used to feel aligned. The decisions made sense. The conversations mattered. But now, they just happen. And you happen with them. Carl Jung said the persona is not a lie. It's a compromise, a necessary adaptation, a mask that helps us navigate the expectations of the world. But when the mask becomes your identity, the self goes quiet. And that silence, it shows up everywhere. You wake up and reach for your phone, not because anything is urgent, but because you can't sit with yourself. You overschedule meetings to avoid the stillness. You answer emails at midnight, not from necessity, but from fear of what might rise if you stop. Your body feels it first, the tension in your jaw, the shallow breath, the weight in your chest that caffeine won't move and meditation can't touch. And then the disconnection creeps in. You stop remembering conversations that weren't transactional. You forget the last time you laughed without performing it. You hear your own advice echo back at you and realize you haven't taken any of it. Here's the truth you haven't said aloud. You've become a technician of your own image. The lines are still sharp. The delivery's on point. But the presence is gone because somewhere along the way you stopped being the author of your story and became its narrator. But you're not broken, you're buried under systems, under titles, under the pressure to always know, to always lead, to always perform. And now, in the moments of quiet you used to outrun, something is surfacing, not failure, not crisis, a question. What if there's more than just doing this well? What if you could feel whole again without pretending to be? The silence isn't your enemy, it's your entrance cue, not back onto the stage, but behind it, where your real voice has been waiting patiently to return. It starts in the play no one sees. You snap at a comment that wouldn't have bothered you last month. You dread the meeting you used to enjoy. You replay conversations after they end, not because you regret them, but because something in you didn't show up during them. You're not out of energy, you're out of congruence. This is the shadow. And it's not the villain in your story, it's the part of you that remembers who you were before the performance. Carl Jung didn't describe the shadow as evil, he described it as unclaimed, repressed, exiled. It's the version of you that holds every impulse, every need, every softness that the persona had to hide. And when you've built a career around being reliable, composed, logical, anything that falls outside that becomes dangerous. So you push it down. You bury the rage, the doubt, the ache for real connection. You wear decisiveness like armor and strategy like scripture. And then the armor starts to rust. The feedback lands harder than it should. The silence after a win stretches longer than it used to. The compliments feel like they're addressed to someone else entirely. You're leading, but no longer landing. Because what the world sees is the mask. But what they're reacting to is the fracture beneath it. The shadow doesn't want control, it wants to be seen, it wants to be integrated, not dismissed. It holds the very parts of you that could heal the disconnection, your depth, your softness, your intuition, your truth. But here's the tension. Inviting the shadow means letting go of perfection. It means facing the parts of you that don't fit the image. The part that's tired of leading alone, the part that's afraid of being truly seen, the part that wonders if all this success is a monument to your silence. And that's the moment of return, when you stop asking how to protect the mask and start asking how to reclaim the man beneath it. The shadow isn't here to destroy what you built. It's here to bring back what you left behind to build it. You don't lead better by suppressing it. You lead better by including it, by letting the fractured parts speak, by allowing the performance to pause, by becoming someone who doesn't need to hide anything to be worthy of everything. You're not breaking down, you're breaking open. So the parts of you that have been waiting in the wings, your feeling, your fire, your freedom, can finally walk on stage, not as a threat to your leadership, but as the missing piece of it. There's a moment when the role you've mastered begins to echo. You say the words, you play the part, you hit every mark, but something doesn't land, not with them and not with you. It's not burnout, it's not fatigue. It's the realization that you're leading on autopilot, executing from memory, living inside a script that once felt like power and now feels like silence. You close another deal, another meeting goes exactly as planned. Everyone's satisfied. You smile, you nod. You say the closing line you've said 100 times before, and then nothing. No resonance, no pride, just a kind of static, like the moment you finish a sentence and realize you weren't really there when you said it. That's the fracture, not visible from the outside, but felt in every part of you that still remembers what it was like to feel alive while doing this. You haven't failed, you've evolved. And the role hasn't. That's what makes it so hard to name, because nothing has gone wrong. The machine is still running, the metrics still reflect progress, the praise still comes, but the self, the part of you that used to show up fully, that used to speak from alignment instead of choreography, is gone quiet. Carl Jung described this moment not as collapse, but as a crossing, a threshold. The point where the persona begins to dissolve, not because of weakness, but because the truth can no longer be outsourced to performance, and the signs are everywhere if you stop to look. You hesitate before responding to questions you could once answer in your sleep, not because you don't know, but because you've stopped feeling connected to the answers. You begin to envy people who don't need to be exceptional. You find yourself wondering how long you can keep leading without feeling anything at all. And maybe you've already had the moment, brief, invisible to others, when you sat in your car after work and just paused, not because you were tired, but because you didn't know who to be once the mask came off. That's not weakness, that's the call. To stop polishing the persona, to stop rehearsing certainty, to stop pretending the script still fits a soul that's outgrown it. This is where real leadership begins, not at the height of performance, but at the depth of honesty. You don't need a reinvention, you need a return to the version of you that wasn't built for optics, the one who didn't have to armor up just to be heard, the one who could feel and still be fierce, who could pause and still be powerful. That version is still here, buried beneath strategy, silenced by success. Waiting behind the part of you that forgot authenticity isn't a luxury, it's a lifeline. You're not failing, you're shedding. And what's coming undone isn't your capacity, it's your camouflage. So let it fall, the lines, the timing, the performance. Because underneath it all is the leader they've never truly met. The one who doesn't lead to be followed, the one who leads because he's finally standing in his own name. The curtain doesn't fall with drama, it falls with stillness, no spotlight, no music cue, just a quiet moment where you realize you're done performing. You've worn the mask long enough. It got you here, it protected you, it helped you navigate rooms that required certainty and strength, but now it's costing you something more important, your presence. And maybe for the first time you can feel it, the permission to stop editing your truth to fit the frame, to stop outsourcing your worth to applause, to stop measuring your value by the silence you can command instead of the depth you can embody. Carl Jung said the self isn't something you build, it's something you uncover. And when it returns, quietly, often without announcement, you begin to remember who you were before you became someone for everyone else. You start to breathe differently, you say less but mean more. You listen not just to respond but to resonate. You don't walk into rooms to dominate them. You walk in whole, and that changes everything. Because leadership isn't about holding the room, it's about holding yourself while the room responds. That's the shift. The day you stop chasing recognition and start living from recognition of your own voice, your own values, your own alignment. And yes, the applause may fade, but so does the pressure. And in its place rises a kind of clarity you can't perform your way into. The clarity of presence, the clarity of peace, the clarity of knowing that you don't need to prove anything to be someone. So let me ask you now, without pretense, without strategy, without the mask, who are you when there's no role to protect you? That's where your real authority begins. And if this spoke to the part of you that's been silent for too long, don't let it stay hidden, because someone out there is still pretending, still polishing a mask that's suffocating them. Let this be the moment they stop. Let this be the moment you stop. Let this be the edge of the stage, not your ending, but your emergence.